Today I want to discuss the gruesome scenes from Gaza. Right now we have a ceasefire and about 50% of it is still controlled by the Israeli soldiers. Rest is controlled by the Hamas. And in Gaza Strip territory we also have different factions than Hamas organization, and we also have some gangs, and they are all sometimes with an odds with Hamas, and sometimes they are cooperating. And we saw a very gruesome scene, barbaric, horrific scene when Hamas operatives were publicly murdering those who they claim to be in gangs or collaborate with Israeli army, and it was public. The Gazans were cheering Allahu Akbar, so God is great. So it was a kind of a religious also vibe that you claim that God is great and God approves that you are mass murdering people from a short distance with assault rifles, and the whole crowd is cheering, applauding. You see children, you see women, and so on. So it was a really barbaric scene, which show us evidently that Arabs are living in an area of a caveman. Yes, so they think that they are cool, that they are murdering people who are in custody. They are they are chained, and they murder them with assault rifles into their heads. So you see that that this kind of behavior is showing us that Islam is probably not a religion anymore, that it is more of a cult. This is more of a cult and a death cult. Yes, so they murder people who they deem murder in a very vicious but also infantile and lame way, because they always murder people who don't expect that they will be attacked and murdered. So this kind of behavior is completely honorless, completely karmaless, and without any future ground to improve something. Because, for example, if you just murder people because you think they are collaborators, you murder them, you don't even execute them, because execution is the capital punishment in the manner of law, and they were just slaughtering those people. And the Gazans even cheered this attitude, these steps. So, for example, we have right now accounts of hostages who are being held by Hamas, and one of the hostages, who was almost 490 something days, was held by Hamas, and some older operatives of Hamas said to him, "Why do you want to live? Why do you want to live so badly?" And they were not young operatives. They were like officer rank operatives from Hamas, even 40, even 50 something years old. So they claim that the whole world is Arab, and that the death is more valuable than life. So they were asking him honestly why he wants to live. So you see that we have such twisted mentality that these men are beyond any or any redemption. Yes, they are so retarded, and probably this cruel infantile retardedness is, in my opinion, the main cause is of Turkish Ottoman rule of Arabs for about 300, 400 even years. So Turks were they had some successes in conquering some parts of Balkans, but most of the time they even tried to conquer Vienna. But but most of the time they just conquer. They of course conquer Constantinople and they destroyed Byzantine Empire. But other than conquest, they didn't have any achievements. And Arabs, they even though they were also conquering their lands outside Saudi Arabia, they also had many scientists or even psychologists or sociologists achievements, but right now this is all gone. This is all completely forgotten, and this is all completely without any reason for younger male adults of Arab populations. You see that they behave savagely, they behave, and even their behavior is not even savage, mm, it's lame savagery, that they think that they murder people, they record something, they execute some people, they torture them, and they then they will invent some story to think that this is rationalized, and everyone will be cheering them. And of course this is not the case, because Muslim leaders know that authoritarian rules for Muslim countries are necessary, because Muslim, especially youth people, they don't have any authorities. In Islam, this is the problem of Islam religion in general, that the greatest authority was Muhammad, and then later the caliphs, especially first four. But of those four, first the greatest caliphs, three of them were murdered. So if the biggest out, and all of them were murdered in Muslim countries, by Muslims or by people in living in Muslim culture. So all of them, let's say, were murdered by Muslim people, and they should be the greatest authority in Muslim world, because in Islam um, we have ulema, or we have Sufis, or we have generally priests of Islam, but they don't have a specific hierarchy. And the Muslim ulema, the Muslim priests, don't have any real authority about Islam, because in Islam, generally speaking, rulers are the authority also on religious matters. So this is the reason why we had caliphs. Caliphs were rulers, but they were also religious authorities. And right now we don't have caliphate, and also in Islam they don't have strict interpretation, what is good, what is bad, what is allowed, what is not allowed, because every Muslim can interpret the hadith, also the Quran, the holiest book of Islam, and the hadith in accordance to his, or to the because we have like five schools of Islam, but also to his point of view. So every Muslim can interpret their religion as they wish in specific situation. So this is completely destroying the religion as it is, because in religion, in big religions, only priests and high priests, high hierarchy, is allowed to show us or to create dogmas and to tell us what is wrong, what is not, what is allowed by this religion, what is not allowed. Because other than that, everyone, for example in Christianity, could interpret their Bible as their wish. This is, for example, the problem in Protestant world, that they generally have also priests and bishops, but they also needs to write to study Bible themselves. So this is the problem, because in one way they are more knowledgeable about Bible than, for example, Catholics, but for example, we have like 20 big Protestant churches, and every one of them can interpret the scriptures, the Bible, the holy books as they wish. So this is really this include this is straight way to relative religion in everything, because one can be, let's say, leftist, another person can be right wing politician or organizer. So you can interpret your Bible and your interpretation of your Bible according to your ideology. So, and this is, for example, the problem also in Eastern Christianity, because in Eastern Christianity, Eastern Christianity didn't interpret the Christian religion as Pope, as a general bishop ruling Christianity. In Eastern Christianity, the most important thing was the gathering of bishops, and we have like synods, and synods are lesser gatherings, and then we have councils, and but the councils were also there were a few of them, those accepted by Eastern and Western Christianity, and they were only on most important and controversial topics. But other than that, synods of, for example, concrete provincial of Roman Empire of bishops was allowed to interpret what is allowed, what is not. And later on, we have like some specific rules that every church in Christianity is not bound by decisions of other Christian church. So, for example, we have a Polish Orthodox Church, but he can be in communion with, for let's say, Bulgarian Orthodox Church, but they don't need to listen to themselves. They can manage their Christian things as they wish. So this is of course the disadvantage of Eastern Christianity, and that's why they were parted even in ancient times, and right now they are not able to convene the general council, for example, of Eastern Christianity, because in Western Christianity, after the schism, we still have general councils of Western Christianity, and other after Lutheran Reformation we have still councils of Catholic Church. But in Islam there is no such thing as councils, and there is no such things even as strict dogmas, because every Muslim can interpret its dogma or dogmas of Islam as he wishes. This is, for example, the problem why Sunni Muslim and Shia Muslim are fighting and killing and murdering each other, because they differ completely on very important topics. For example, who should be the ruler of Muslims? What was the status of Ali? What was the status of Aisha? So we see that in, and Muslim teenagers, Muslim young men, they see that the Muslim world is without any authority for them and without any dignity for them. So they do as they want to do with their religion, with their interpretation of religion, and so on. And this is completely destructive behavior on many levels, not on religious level, but on, let's say, educational level. How would you do a proper education with these barbaric, savage behaviors? How would you manage your family? When for example, I see those Muslims and outside Hamas operatives, I observe those Muslims in Great Britain and so on, and I see that most of them are overweight, very big, very large. Sometimes they wear those, let's say, religious outfits like white garments, but they look silly in them. They look like they wearing something from their wardrobe or from their bedroom rather, like they were wearing pajamas or something like that. and you see that they cannot even eat healthily. Most of them are smoking. They taking some kind of drugs, even though they don't acknowledge that they are drugs, and they are so vile that they don't understand even that they are only becoming more vile, more savage, and more degenerated. How can you make people of Gaza prosper if, for example, I heard stories of Israeli soldiers that, for example, they were sweeping some area and they saw a empty house, and in this empty house there was a older specific one woman, tied to the bed, and she was some of these, because there was not only one case. Some of these women were even mentally disabled, and some of them were okay, but they were probably cuffed to the bedrooms to be killed in airplanes, in airstrikes. So you see that the younger males are completely out of touch with reality. If they are even considering cuffed older women who can be their mothers or their grandmothers, and they think it's okay, it's the way of life. For example, we have right now we have a ceasefire, and 20 of all living hostages were released. There are still problems with those who died, with bodies of those who died. But for example, the Israelis led from the prisons like 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, but 250 of them, they were convicts to life, and most of them were murderers, and mass murderers. And we, for example, have a guy who murdered his mother because he married a Jew. Or he murdered his sister because he considered that she's being a spy or something like that. So you see that the barbaric behavior of Muslims, and specifically Arabs, is destroying completely their culture, because of course we have this let's say parades of support for Palestine, but they are mostly organized like a mob protests. No one believes them, and even they don't believe what they are saying or what they are doing, and to some extent they don't believe, because if they really saw what the Hamas did, and all Arabs know that if, for example, let's say Hindus would kill them in such a vicious way, for example, because they conquered India in the past, no one would allow such behavior to go freely unpunished, and cheer about it, and so on. So all Muslims are behaving more like a mob than a real organized, structural, and serious religion. And if you, for example, you are mass murdering your own people, your own Muslims from your own ummah, you will not govern your country properly, because you cannot do anything. You cannot educate people. You cannot proper administrations of your country. You cannot do anything. For example, all those Hamas operatives they were wearing when they were murdering Jews on October 2 years ago, they were wearing probably shahada bands on their foreheads, and they look so retarded, so silly, that you know that they are completely out of touch with reality. They are completely out of touch in reality. They can murder something. They can look a little bit goofy and a little bit retarded, but they will not be able to create something which is civilized and which can give a proper way of governing to your country, to driving a car, to have proper shops in proper areas, to have a military which is organized and lawful. So this is the case. So for example, right now we have also gangs in Gaza because they only are able to kill themselves or kill another people, and especially if those people are weak and not prepared for that. And this is completely irrational only even on the level of military, because for example, what the war of Russia on Ukraine is rational. It's not ethical, it's not moral, but it's rational. Russia is big. It created communism, which murdered even Russians. They were murdering themselves, and they are a big country with a massive army. So they are able to sacrifice, let's say, 300,000 young soldiers to conquer Ukraine. This is rational, but if you want to rationally, let's say, conquer or fight the other country, you cannot just, and you know that the Israel is a very strong country. It's a very small country, but military strong, and Israel can conquer or reconquer many of those areas of other Arab lands like Egypt, like Jordan, and like Lebanon, and they know that, and they still thought that they will send some soldiers, some operatives, they will murder people, they will record that, they will take some hostages, and everything will be cool and everything will be okay. And even when I heard the investigators who were in the past Jewish operatives who were negotiating with Hamas unofficially, they say that the Hamas was really proud of what they did. So they also don't understand that even in earliest times of Islam, Sahaba, companions of the Muhammad, and later, they knew that war needs to be conducted in certain way, not to be a slaughterhouse. And right now they are only able to do a slaughtering, mostly innocent, completely innocent people, and they only can cheer about it. For example, I saw the recordings of dead Israeli soldiers, and they were kicking the body and they were recording it. So you cannot do normal things in war, and you are not able even understand that such behavior. If you were not fighting with Israelis, you would be completely evaporated for such behavior. Let us remember the case of Bangladesh and Myanmar, when Myanmar gangs in Rohingya Bengalis, where there was some dispute about those gangs and Myanmar policemen, and because of that, because of the killing of some of those Myanmar policemen, about 1 million Bengalis were forced to leave Myanmar, and and many of them were slaughtered. So if a case of beef between man and man and has ended in expulsion of 1 million Muslims, so and here we have a much more serious behavior of those Hamas operatives. So Muslims, you need to advance your civilization further, not downgrade it, because it's completely degenerate your way of thinking, your families, your children, everything, your way of decorating houses, your way of driving cars, your way of making a shop list. You will not be able to do trivial things if you are not able to do complicated things in a proper and civilized manner. So let those cases of Hamas behaviors be a reminder for non-Muslims that Muslim is more of a cult right now, and unfortunately this is the reason for this is because Muslims are very low intelligent in many ways, not only in this specific way of Arabs in Gaza, in many ways. And Muslims, do your job properly. Educate yourself. Try to understand the reality. You cannot just behave like infantile savages here and there and think that everything will be okay. You will bring your amma to the greatest levels of your development, because it will only degenerate you. People will be fearing you, and then they will be despising you and your behavior. So let me end with proposal to comment on this video, what Muslims should do to improve their behavior, to leave those barbaric ways of conduct, and to improve themselves.